Hey, do me a favor. Do me a favor, real quick, before we're getting ahead of ourselves. Tell us about the very first time you seen the Chickenman, and what was you thinking in relation to, especially after your dad told you that it's a guy in a gorilla suit. And here you go. You are an outdoorsman. I already know this. You love to hunt, but you mainly love to fish. Tell about the very first time you run into the guy wearing the gorilla suit while you was fishing.
Well, we only differ on expressions, my friend Bear. We only differ on you're Southern. You're a little more Southern than me. You call them boogers, and I have my own pet name for them. And I don't think anybody else has this. And I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. I call them prairie apes. You probably go, what? You've probably never heard that.
I was just hoping that you weren't going to say that you call them friends.
I call them prairie apes.
I've been using prairie apes for years.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I stole it from you. But that's what I've always considered them. All right. I was fishing with a buddy. And
where was you at in relation to where you at, Concho and all this? Don't give the exact location, but you wasn't that very far from all this general territory, correct?
No, that's true. It's one of the many tributaries that run in and out of the North Canadian River. And some of these, they went in and blocked them up and brought in bulldozers in the early 50s. And they're called flood reservoirs. They kept the land from flooding, and they stocked them with bass and everything. And they've got a lot of tree lines and a lot more forest around them. And it was like I was saying, being a pilot, you can fly across this land and just boom, catch. Oh, there's a creek line, or maybe you're just out driving the roads around here, and Tulsa's not that much different, really. Up in your area, right. You can be driving along and look over on one side of the road to the other and see a tree burst or a tree line and go, I bet you there's a pond, good bass pond down in there. Right. And that's how we would spot places to fish. But we were on this flood control reservoir just off of the North Canadian, and it would be about 10 miles east of the old 81 bridge, the old Chickenman incident, and it'd be about 7 to 8 miles north is the exact location. And let's just call my buddy, let's give him his Indian name, Anon, which I'm going to say that Anon is short for he was anonymous.
Very famous
name, Anon. Yeah. Well, me and Anon were fishing, and we had been bass fishing partners for years. We fished tournaments and everything else, but I caught my first 11-pound, 9-ounce black bass in this area that I'm talking about, and I was flipping. We were in a two-man bass boat. The reason we were in a two-man bass boat is because you couldn't get into this. You couldn't pitch a cane pole anywhere off this place. It was completely surrounded with woods, brush, heavy timber, dead piles of dead wood. You know, when the wood would die out or something like that, the guy who would once about every 3 months come onto the property, he'd get a tractor and load up piles of this dead wood out there and let it set and get it away from the rest of it. And you had to come into this one little certain area. You couldn't fish around it. So we're in the boat and we're fishing, and I'm flipping, which means I've got a longer, about a 6-foot rod, and I'm dipping. You dip your line up and down into these
underhand instead of overhead.
That's right. You just kind of grab you a handful of line in your left hand and let it down into these, right in the middle of these piles that are submerged. So I'm working this bank, and I'm about, I don't know, I guess we're sitting out maybe 10 foot out from the bank, and I'm reaching out there and hitting these brush piles. that's where those big boys are hanging out. And my buddy, he's swiveled around in his seat, and he's casting out into the channel, the deep part, and running along crankbaits and this and that. And he's not paying any attention to what I'm doing. And as long as he doesn't speed up too much on the little electric motor, I'm happy. So we're going along, and I get to this one brush, and I go, stop here. There's no wind that day. And I had a little hit. So I'm working. I said, stop right here. I'm working this. He goes, yeah, I'm going to work this. This is the deepest part of the channel, according to our little depth finder and all that. I said, okay. And I saw a little brush of dark and auburn fur around the side of the tree. And with, my peripheral vision, and I immediately thought, hey, it's a squirrel. They're doing the little squirrel dance. So that's why you always take a buddy with you when you go squirrel hunting. You guys know that. Because you send one around the one side, and that squirrel go, and when he runs around, you shoot him. If you go by yourself, you'll be playing that game all day long around the main.
Circling the tree. Circling the tree.
Over and over. So I thought, well, that's what that is. I did, and I just kept fishing. Because there was a lot of squirrel game like that around there. And my buddy pulled up a little bit further, about 3-4 foot, and that's when I saw I know this sounds funny to you, but it wasn't a squirrel anymore. It was a little shoulder, like a shoulder, like a human shoulder, but full of hair, and same color. That's what I've seen. And it was this thing's shoulder, and I saw his knee. He thought he was right up against that tree, and he had his feet up around it, probably, I don't know how it squatted, and this thing thought he was hiding from me. But this time I saw his shoulder and his knee sticking out, just a little bit. And I said, this is a good spot. And on, why don't you just stay here? And I'm hitting this thing, and I go, what the hell am I looking at? I don't know, but I'm not scared. I'm not afraid. And I've always kind of dealt with things this way. Until it gets out and cuts my head off, I've been kind of stupid about things like that, but I've survived this long. I'm 56 years old, and this thing, pretty soon, peers its little head around the side. And I say little. The thing was at least my size, and I'm 6'2", 6'3", 230-something pounds. And he puts his little head around the side, and I go, oh, my God. In my mind, I'm telling you guys what I'm thinking. I'm telling the audience here what I'm thinking. I'm looking at a primate face. I'm looking at what the hell is this? There's no primates around here. I'm analytical and scientific. I've studied this. There are no known primates in the state of Oklahoma that I'm aware of. And that's what I was taught in school and college and everything else. And so he peers, as we move up, my buddy moves up a little bit more. And that's when I just start pretending like I'm fishing. I quit fishing, and I'm just watching. And there he is. He just kind of slips around slowly, got an arm around the tree, and one arm, and he kind of moves it out, and one knee kind of falls to the side, and he relaxes a little bit, and we're just staring at each other.
How close is he to you, Kirk?
10 foot.
Wow.
3 yards.
I asked him this question, Johnathan, and he told me the way the lake is, where the lake line is, there's the brush line. I mean, what he was doing was dropping his bait, was you using a worm? And you was hoping
using
that
a jig and pig, Bear.
Right, like it fell off the deadwood right there on the edge of the right there off the edge of the bank into the water. And that's what he was doing, fishing that way. And this thing was right there on the other side of this tree that was right there rooted on the bank. And so I asked Kurt, I said, 10 feet is close, guys, but see, you got to understand, yeah, he was right there on top of this thing, and they was looking at each other. Now, go ahead.
Well, a lot of people have asked me. There's not very many people that know publicly. There's a few now. Bear knows, but most people go, "Weren't you freaked out?" And all this, and I was not. There was no reason to be. The face was people always ask, "What did it look like? What did it look like?" I got to know what it looks like. That face. I got to know what that face looks like. And I always tell them, I can describe it just like I can if I close my eyes and describe bear. Big Stetson black cowboy hat, a goatee. But this is seriously. It was a primate type face. I'll get to the main point right now. The lips, the mouth was closer. It was wider, and it sat higher above the chin, but was more human. Yes, it was more human, if you're going to call it that. And that's the only thing I'll give it, human-wise. The mouth did not look like the typical chimp or gorilla mouth. The nose was hooded. The nostrils were not out flared like a gorilla. The eyes had a round, extremely, in my case anyway. I'm sure they can look evil and all that, and I've heard all these other encounters that were horrible, but mine wasn't. They were rounded, slightly, I've used that expression before, Down syndrome, slightly, but not Down syndrome. It's hard to explain. The expression that I got from this thing was not as much whether it appeared to be these googly, slightly large eyes in their sockets. Brown. They were brown. I didn't see any whites in them. Chin, hair, but not a lot of hair on the face. Coming up from the neck, yeah, that was all hair. The head was covered in hair longer. It had longer hair along the forearms, but the rest of the hair on the body was, 2 or 3 inches, not that long. And it was dark in spots, like a coon. If you've ever looked at a coon, most coons anyway, you see all kinds. There's dark, and then there's that auburn and blonde,
right,
and red, and if the sun hits them, and the sun was hitting him, we were out there about 7. It was too hot to fish earlier than that, so the sun was to his back. So the light coming through the trees, hitting his, the blondes and the reds and the auburns just blew off of that coat of hair.
So, Kurt, considering you saw the eyes, would you describe them as like eyes of an intelligent person, or did they have like that, far away look to them?
They had an extreme, and this, you have to put this in context, because I can't just say it was an extremely curious, intelligent primate. You have to look at it in this way. And if anybody listening think about this or look at it in this context, then you're not going to understand what I was envisioning. And that's what you and your listeners want. You want to know what these things look like. And it did not, you've got to think about this. It's something you've never seen before. You've never grown up looking at pictures of it. You've never seen it in the zoo every time you went on a school trip. You can't Google it. It's something you've never seen before, but there it is, and it's looking at you, and it's kind of scared. It's curious. It's kind of, like I said, kind of googly, slightly googly-eyed compared to some primates, but a lot of them have large eyes, especially the smaller primates. Nothing but their skulls are nothing but eyeballs. This wasn't like that, but they were larger than the average human eyeball, and he was again, this is the point what I'm trying to make. This is hard to express in words, guys. It was so curious, and I was so, a shock, a state of shock, looking at something I've never seen before. It's like a unicorn or something. I don't know if God came down and said, "Hey, boys, it's time to round up and let's ride." You go, you wouldn't know. At first, you wouldn't know what to say. This is God. He's 120 feet tall or whatever. And that's how I felt. And so I whistled. And I kind of whistled between my teeth. I just went, like that. Just real quiet. My buddy, he's still fishing. He doesn't see any of this. This is going on for 2 or 3 minutes. And this thing turns its head when I whistle, especially a different pitch or a tune, and turns its head to the side like a dog looking at you. Like my schnauzer looks at me when I make a funny noise. "What are you doing, Daddy?" And he turns his head like a dog. And
looking at you like, "I don't quite understand you."
Yeah. An inquisitive look.
Totally. Just like the RCA dog, on the old Victrola record thing. He's got his head turned cocked sideways, looking at me, and his mouth, and he kind of moves his mouth a little bit. Like, I've never told anybody this, not even Bear. I swear, he was trying to do what I was doing. He was trying. I know it doesn't make sense, and he wasn't whistling, but he was trying to move his mouth when I would go, that little whistle that you can make between your teeth, just real quiet.
Yeah.
He was moving his damn mouth like that and turning his head sideways and all that, and everything was good in the world, and I was just I couldn't even talk. I couldn't move. I'm sitting there in that boat, looking at this primate. That's why I call them primates, because I didn't see nothing slap me in the face and say, "Well, this is a Neanderthal or a human," or anything like that. It was a primate, but extremely different, extremely intelligent, and very curious, and seemed to like me. If these things like anybody, he liked me because I wasn't scared, I guess, and I was whistling to him, and just he was watching what I was doing, and he was just intrigued. "What are you doing?" That's what he. Every once in a while, his eyes would glance down to my pole, and when I would flip it or just act like I was, by that time I wasn't fishing a bit. And finally, this went on a little bit. We moved down a little bit more, and I saw more of him. And then I kind of nudged my buddy, and I told him, I said, "You want to meet our fishing buddy?" And he went, "What?" "Yeah." And I said, "Turn around and look." And he turned around. When his eyes finally made contact with this guy, he screamed, "Oh, my God! What the hell is that?" Just screamed.
Like he screamed like a bitch, or like man style?
I don't know. It's like if you just walked into a room and you didn't expect to see a clown with fangs, and you in your living room when you came home your wife calls you home and you go, yeah, I've got spaghetti. You walk in, there's a clown with fangs in the kitchen. You're going, "What the hell?" And that's what he did. And when he did, this thing's eyeballs, they googled out like Popeye. The old Popeye. I'm not talking about Popeye the sailor. I'm talking about Popeye the circus freak that used to travel through the Midwest, along with the
scared the hell out of the booger. Yeah.
Oh my God! And that thing's not just stood up. It's like he sprung up, like he had steel reinforced air shocks in his legs, and he stood straight up and ran on 2 legs off to my left, and hit a pile of brush that was sitting out there, hopped over it. When he landed on all fours. His hands, they weren't paws. When he landed, his paws or hands hit the ground, and that was double speed. They move faster on all fours than they do on two, by far. But when he was moving, it was so fast, just on the two legs, and it wasn't running like if I was running across there like I'm so out of wind, I'd be dead by the time I ran across the football field. This thing was gliding. I mean, like it looked almost like his legs and feet were gliding like a cross-country skier or something. And when there was no, you ever watch a human get ready to go over a pole vault, or a jump? They always there's this calculation or hesitation or whatever. There was none of that. He went right over that pile of wood, and when he hit, he was on all fours, and he was gone. I mean, like a deer, or faster. And that was my first. I know it's not an exciting story. Like he didn't.
I found it pretty exciting.
Reach in and grab my wife and
I think that's
or
a pretty
me.
damn good story, Kurt.
Well, he didn't rape me or anything.
I was just waiting for the part where the bass hit your lure while you were sitting there staring at him.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't get any bass hits during that time, but
you got more of a kick of adding on than you did anything. I mean, what could you do anyhow? I mean, you was what, 10 feet, maybe 12. I'll even grant you 2 more feet from it. You was in the middle of the water in a boat. If it wanted you, it could have had you. You already looked at him. He looked at you. You could tell that it was a learning experience for the both of you, especially when you started whistling. And I've seen these reactions myself. It's like they're so inquisitive at times, and then you blew his mind by that silent tone whistle you was doing, and it's just automatic with him. The curiosity factor, he was trying to figure out how the hell you was making this noise, and he wanted to make it too. And you nonchalantly bumped your buddy on the arm. He turns around, has a damn stroke, and then the booger has a stroke, and that's how it ends.
Yeah, that's the part that I find interesting. Is like, he's sitting there and he's like, the Bigfoot is like, I can dig that, and he's trying to communicate with you through whistling or whatever he can do as well.
It seems an awful lot like he was gauging his reaction off of your reaction.
There's no doubt about it. You cannot tell me in your lifetime, either with a cat, a dog, a bird, or maybe an exotic, like a primate or something at a zoo, that all of us, sitting here talking, have not had some type of, let's just call it what it is. It's intellectual experience with an animal.
Right.
Yeah, we all know that. Your
perhaps.
dog, if you have a little dog, let's just say you got a dog. That's real. A lot of people have a little dog. They know when you're coming. They hear you 2 blocks away. No one else can tell, and no other dog can, but they know. They sense you. They've got a sixth sense that we've lost long ago in our primordial period, where we would talk to other humans without speaking, and I mean, they call it ESP or whatever, but we all have that. It's just the real simple stuff. Like I could look at you and almost tell you, you want to say something, or you're hungry, or anything like that. And I got off the bank. My friend was just freaked out, and I said, "Just pull up to the bank." I got off, and I wanted to see what he was doing back there, just see if I could find something or tracks or anything. And there was a little push down where he had been, and push down is just, we call it, I'd tracked all my life. It's just where stuff's pushed down. It doesn't really mean a whole lot, but if you track all the time, you can follow.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Sure, it's the tracks. If you're tracking something and you find push down, you'll follow the push down until the tracks start again. And
that's where they stop.
I stood up. Yeah, I stood up a tree where he had stood up, and I figured him to be about my height. Exactly. About
Didn't you tell me, yeah, when we was talking, you had the sense that this was a younger one anyway?
Yeah, but I definitely know. I definitely feel that now. After having a second sighting, but I would say, what, a teenager? Would that be a good expression there?
It sounds exactly like what you run into a teenager. Yep.
I'm going to ask you this question because I get this question a lot. Rounded or pointed head?
The top of the head?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not rounded like mine or yours or hopefully Bear's.
No, Bear's
mine's got a Stetson on it. Keep going.
Slightly crested, yes, slightly. The hair was longer. Not in the very front. It didn't seem like. I don't know why. I mean, I don't think they sit around and go to a beauty shop. But if an animal's got anything that's in the road of their hunting ability or anything, they'll get rid of it. I've watched my dog. If his hair gets too long, my schnauzer, if his hair gets too long and he dies, he'll paw at it with his paw.
Right.
And if they've got a usable thumb and forefinger, they just reach up and trim their own hair, pulling it out.
Yeah.
It was not that long right up there, but it wasn't perfect either, and it grew.
Did it seem like the hair was divided from the crown, like it more covered where the ears should have been? Because your description fits with everything I've seen. One part of the anatomy of a booger that I have never seen real good was the ears. I have never. I know they have them; they got to be there, but most of the time the ears are naturally covered up from the hair flow from both sides of its head. You see where I'm coming from with this?
I can describe it perfectly, and I hope to God my older brother, who's a law enforcement officer, and there's more stories with him, but I hope to God he doesn't hear this, because I can describe the thing's ears perfect. He had the crane, the high ridge, the brow ridge. That's why I was saying, I don't know any humans with a brow ridge like this guy had. And the ears were small and tight to the side of the head.
Right.
Like my brother's. My brother has these weird, small, they're small ears and they're real tight to his head. And that's what they look like. And I thought about that later on. I've never thought about that till talking to you guys. Yeah, the ears were real close to his head. They had a little hair on them, but I could see they were a tannish brown, tan, but not perfect color. There was you see a little tan in them, a little brown in them, a little black in them.
That's what I was going to ask next. What, as close as you was, what color was the skin pigmentation underneath the hair as far as you could tell? Was it more reddish or more black or grayish?
It was more of a darker, but not. It was like it dried out. It was like it didn't have. It was more. What do you call it? Wrinkled up, like it had noxema skin cream on it.
I got you. Yeah.
And there was areas like the ears I was describing were a little marbled. There was the dark in them and a little bit of tan, and then there'd be a space of more hair along the bottom of the earlobe, and then on the closer to the inner ear, there was a little bit of reddish skin tone.
Right.
Right. Yeah, but it wasn't perfect, is what I'm trying to say.
How far did the hair grow up from, say an average beard line up to underneath its eyes? Was it more sparse or less sparse in the cheekbone area?
Just a little, very sparse around the cheek. I remember that. And, what I noticed the most was the chin. And it was like real kind of thin and scraggly and red. Coarse as heck. Real coarse and real red and real thin and scraggly, coming right off the chin about 3.5 inches. And kind of looked like, I always described it as Shaggy from Scooby.
Right.
That little chin hair. He had that little chin hair right there. Had eyelashes. There were eyelashes and a little bit of chin hair, like an old boy who doesn't shave, is growing a beard and doesn't maintain it well. There's that that grows up on the chin, which is not, it's, yeah.
I understand. How much
patch.
hair did it have from the brow ridge up to its cranium?
Very little.
Okay.
Very, very little at all. And
what about the mustache line?
I just
across the nose. Was the nose more blackish? Yeah.
Yeah, real sparse.
So he didn't have like a bro stash or anything like that.
Just barely. Looked like a teenager trying to grow a mustache almost. That real thin.
That's what I was getting into, because that's
like a Mexican mustache?
A Hispanic mustache, Johnathan.
Yeah, remember, we politically correct here.
Well, it wasn't even that thick. It was like, I ought to know as well as anybody. It was like a Native American. It was just sporadic. You could almost sit there, and if you had the time to count the hairs that were actually growing from the pores,
True.
There wasn't that many around the mustache area at all. And the nose.
Did he try to protrude his lips when you was whistling?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I figured, because that's what I'm envisioning.
He took his upper lip and he protruded his lip, and he took his upper lip and kind of pinch his upper lip kind of together with his mouth, and it kind of like he was trying to go snoop snoop, or something. It's hard to describe. He'd kind of move his lips together, and the upper lip would kind of curl up towards the nose, And another time he opened his mouth. I did see that.
Was you able to see canines?
I saw kind of, they were whitish yellow. One tooth was slightly black, blackened, like it, like an injured tooth gets. They get black, or a root canal or something. And
like it was rotting or something.
If that back tooth, if he did have canines, he didn't open his mouth big enough to show him like a great ape or anything. But if he did have any canines, they were way back in the back, not up in the front where I could see them. So no, I guess I didn't see any canines.
Big blocky teeth like Kumbo describes. I've never seen big blocky teeth, but or were they more human-like teeth?
Yeah, it's like a mouthful of molars. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, see, that's what's so interesting about this. You say that it does not sound as fantastic as other people's first sighting. I disagree with you wholeheartedly.
It's all about the subtle details.
Yeah, not many people have seen one within 10 to 12 feet from the bank, or that close anyway.
Well, I can tell you firsthand, this is the first time somebody has described this sort of detail of the face to me as much as you have, and getting certain aspects like the mouth and the nose matches.
And the ears.
Well, I've never heard anybody talk about the ears, but the mouth and the nose and the position of the mouth, it's the first time that I've heard anybody describe one that really matches what I saw the first time.
Well, the eyes, too, the shape of the eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people don't realize when you see them in the daytime, They don't. Humans have more of a tear-shaped eye. Bigfoot, the ones I've seen and the one Matt has, and I'm sure Johnathan has, and I know since Kurt just described what he has, they are more oval, they're more rounder, they're more fuller, and there's less white that you can see in the eye. Mostly their pupil envelops their whole eye almost. Am I wrong with this, you guys? Yeah.
They're googly, but what they don't, I mean, I guess they wouldn't seem googly. In all the pictures and stuff and artist conceptions I'm always looking at them, I'm going, yeah, there's always something wrong, and I never can figure out what's wrong with this picture. And
one of the main differences is the position of the mouth to the nose. They have it set way down for some reason.
And this cranium, that brow ridge, that cranial, right at the top of the brow ridge and back is slanted back, and that big brow ridge and those large eye socket areas, they don't get that right in those photos. No. The eyes are googly, or they're large, they're round.
Yeah,
and I mean,
I've always described my sighting as it was through night vision, so I couldn't get a lot of detail, and it was partially obscured by some branches, but I refer to them as more almond shaped, and what I mean by that is they don't come to a point on the outsides like ours do. They're rounded, and if they come to a point, it's more towards the bridge of the nose than anything.
Right. Well, and that's hard to determine when it's sitting back in that brow ridge so far.
Right.
Stuff that's maybe googly on you doesn't look googly on something with a brow ridge and a deep impression back in their skull like that. And the one I witnessed, and this was at night, and I didn't have night vision. I had a street light, and it was like nothing like it. This thing was 9 foot tall and had a lot of hair, off its head and off its beard looking, but that face was like a big boy grown up. It was like the difference between me at 12 and me at 50, 40, something like that.
Yeah.
It was a whole different thing.
I'm kind of watching the time here. Would you mind going into your second encounter or experiential one real quick? I mean, don't rush it. Just, we got plenty of time because we can record, but go on into your second encounter with one, if you don't mind, Kurt.
No, this second encounter was totally a what you call a run-by. Not much better, I guess, than when people spot them all the time, and they're increasingly spotting them all the time as they drive. Around a mountainside, or they're driving around a curve, or they're out on a country road, and they see something across the road. And like I said earlier, a lot of people don't report stuff like that around here, and they blow it off as one thing or the other. But I was standing on my front porch, and I've got a group of foxes. I don't feed prairie apes. I don't go take them oranges and apples and stuff like that. Okay? I've heard, and especially after I heard what bears said about doing stuff like that. You move out, and then the poor bastard that moves in after you is going to have a hell of a time with it. But I do give scraps and things to my fox family, and I've almost got them feeding out of my hand. And this one big blonde fox has her kits this year, and they've been coming up a lot. And so I go outside, and I look for them. I'll shine the light, and I can spot their eyes. They're den it and far from my front doorstep. And this thing came along the tree line that we've got, and not at least 9 foot or taller. And it didn't make a sound. It was like it was skiing, just gliding, until it turned right into the tree line and just busted right through a couple of trees I mean, trees that are way over my head, but it was damn near as tall as they were, and just smashed right through it. And he looked at me as he moved, and it was all in a flash. And it was the biggest, dark, longer hair, and like a big example of what I witnessed when I was fishing. Extremely, if I could see through the hair, I imagine there's a hell of a six-pack, tiny stomach, thin waistline. The legs did not look, they didn't seem real short to me on this big one.
Did it look like it was a male or a female?
It was a male. Yeah, there was no breast. That chest, when you got up to the chest after that skinny-looking stomach, was this humongous chest, 3.5, 4 foot across, with long arms, and they just kind of strode. I mean, it's hard to explain. They just kind of flowed out there like he was swimming through air, and just slid down this tree line right in front of, well, this was a little further away, probably 20 yards from me, 20 to 30 yards. And I caught him out of the corner of my eye because I was flashlighting down there looking for my foxes. And he just strode up right across that tree line, just massively giant. And there's no other way to put it. When people go, they're just huge, you know. And that's the first time I'd seen a big one like that, and the only time. And more hair around the face, longer hair coming off that crested head, looked long, you know. Longer hair around the legs. There was still a little snow on the ground. So, yeah, the image, or at least here, I can't say about the Northwest. I'm not saying Patty is not real or it's fake or anything else. They just don't look like that down here.
It's the same way in the South, and I'm not taking nothing away from Patty. I always said that environmentally, ecosystematically adapted creature for that part of the country. And as much as I've done it across the South, I've seen different statures or body shapes, forms, heights, the whole 9 yards, and I have yet to see anything that reminds me of Patty.
Well, when it comes
yeah.
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was practically finished.
Well,
I understand.
Well, my last thing, and I mentioned this to Bear, and yeah, whether this is worthy of the radio program or not, I've got a theory about why we're seeing more of them, and I've got a long version and a short version. So the short version is probably more apropos, if you want to hear it.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. I don't know how much time we got left in the show, but I wanted to ask you now, since you've seen the Chickenman, but you call them prairie apes, and I respect that apt description. I wanted to get into more details about Concho and everything, but we have to save that for another show. But what do you think these things are? Why do you think we're seeing more of them, and the whole 9 yards? I mean, you can actually even give the long version if you want to.